Hi everybody, welcome to the March Supper Club. Here we are. We are just the day after Ash Wednesday, and so we have the season of Lent on our minds and thought, why not explore that season? You'll watch the video at some point during the 40 days of Lent. The 40 days of Lent, one of the many themes that we could explore is wilderness, because we reflect in this time also on Jesus' 40 days in the wilderness. I thought we'd read the piece out of Mark real quickly for you, just to kind of ground you in that. So this is from the first chapter in verse 9. In those days Jesus came from Nazareth of Galilee and was baptized by John in the Jordan. And just as he was coming up out of the water, he saw the heavens torn apart and the Spirit descending on him like a dove. And a voice from heaven came and said, "You are my Son, the Beloved, and with you I am well pleased." And it's interesting, it goes straight into, in Mark's brevity that he's so well known for, and the Spirit, so the same Spirit that comes upon him in baptism, immediately drove him into the wilderness. He was in the wilderness 40 days, tempted by Satan, and he was with the wild beasts, and the angels waited on him. And I think what struck us is that it's the same Spirit. This is the Spirit of God, so this isn't some punishment or something that God would not want. God's the one who sends Jesus into the wilderness. And so perhaps we too have something in us calling us into the wilderness.
And I think it's vital to look at that almost developmentally, both in our makeup emotionally, but also spiritually. That as young children we have home base and we explore, and looking back, that one who loves us can mirror to us and give us energy to go out and explore, and we come back to restore and renew. Yeah. But I wonder what it means to see God as both home base and also accompany us as we go out into the wilderness. So we're not doing an either or, we're actually being surrounded with love as we do both. And then we long for both. Both are almost essential to our own lives.
I think so. The poet David White talks about that we are creatures of both the center and the edge, that we long and need for both of these things. We go out, but then we want to go back, and if we spend too long at home, we start to long.
And the whole idea of why to go out and explore, the Spirit didn't send Jesus out to the edge to live on the edge in this, and we often think of the edge as this adrenalized place of standing on a cliff and our hearts are racing.
How much can we test ourselves?
Yeah, almost an ego-driven of I did that, versus truly looking at stepping out of our routine, our comfort zones, to experience something new. And in that experience, it can be something that broadens who we are and how we engage in life.
And don't you think there's the difference between it being this adrenaline rush of, can I go and do something dangerous, because that's not what we're talking about. It's almost as if it starts with a listening. It starts with a kind of inner, what am I being led to lean into, that almost moves us toward God. It should feel like this sense of moving closer to wholeness, not just a kind of an adrenaline rush. Right? But there's lots of ways.
And to do it that's friendly. So it's not necessarily, again, it's not that driven, I've accomplished this, but it's not like climbing Mount Everest on your own. But I can do that in really good company. I can do that fully supported and fully loved. And so it's not something I have to do on my own out there.
There's lots of ways so as we move into Lent, or wherever you are in Lent, if you're being called to wilderness, there's lots of ways that you could do this. One is to literally go into wilderness, to go into the natural world. There is, I think a lot of us identify, we hear it in new members classes all the time when we ask about where they feel alive. They talk about God being in the mountains. That there's something just very tangible about the wild world that evokes something in us. And it can feel a little bit dangerous, it can feel a little bit frightening, but also very life-giving. So just the natural world itself.
The natural world, I think the engagement of wild animals can do that. And whether it's lions or wolves or dolphins in the wild, there's a place there of we enjoy seeing them in that all out who they are, it's a wildness that we enjoy seeing. We would not want to domesticate.
Yeah.
They would lose part of the qualities that we love about them. I also think there's a part of our own wildness that taps into the parts of us that we may feel we always have to control, or that we might push down. It gives us an invitation to explore those aspects of ourselves.
When we've become, I think the word domesticated is really helpful. When we've become so domesticated with our to-do lists and our day planners and knowing exactly how our day is going to unfold, to pause and to find spaces where you just go and listen to what's in you. Do you need to go scream? Do you need, what would be the thing that wouldn't be maybe acceptable in our domesticated lives? But you can also do that with your relationships that you're in. Those can become just as domesticated.
We can become so nice and so pleasant, and yet what we're feeling inside, maybe we're feeling something really positive, and we want to tell somebody how deeply we care about them, but that feels edgy, that feels a little difficult. But that could be our wilderness, is stepping into that and expressing.
Another area that we thought of was in some new project or new direction that you want to explore. I was telling Dee about this part for me about the Park Hill Initiative, and specifically for me, having discussions about race, sitting down with people of color and saying, can we talk about your experience, my experience, and leaning into that, knowing that I'm going to mess up, knowing I'm going to say the wrong thing, and knowing I may be offended by something they're going to say, and yet it is the most alive part of my ministry right now. It's this thing that scares me, and I've got a meeting later today, and I look at that and go, and I'm so excited to have that kind of engagement.
Well, and what you named too, Ian, I think is powerful, is that edge many times is not neat and tidy. It's often very messy, because it's authentic, spontaneous relationships. I also think about our relationship with Creator God and how we see that. How is that something so neat and predictable, or are we living and wandering into the edges of how this can be something that actually is a great encounter, or completely radical than what we've experienced in the past?
You think even like the way we pray, for example, can be this very tidy little thing, or is prayer about bringing whatever is going on inside of you, even if it's not, if it just feels wild, if it feels like you're not sure what you might say, that's a different way of exploring our spirituality.
As we were preparing for this, what surfaced for us was a Ted Loder prayer. And Ted Loder, this is one of my favorite prayer books, it's called Guerrillas of Grace. And his prayer is, how shall I pray? And it's, how shall I pray? Are tears prayers, Lord? Are screams prayers? Are groans or sighs or curses? Can trembling hands be lifted to you? Or clenched fist? Or the cold sweat that trickles down my back? Or even the cramps that knot my stomach? Will you accept my prayers, Lord, my real prayers, rooted in the muck and mud and rock of my life? Not just the pretty, cut flower, gracefully arranged bouquet of words. Will you accept me, Lord, as I really am, messed up, mixture of glory and grime? Lord, help me to trust that you do accept me as I am, that I may be done with self-condemnation and self-pity and accept myself. Help me to accept you as you are, Lord, mysterious, hidden, strange, and at times unknowable, and yet to trust that your madness is wiser than my timid, self-seeking sanities, and that nothing you've ever done has really been possible, so that I may dare to be a little mad too. It's powerful, to think it kind of blows the whole thing open.
How about some questions?
Great.
So I think our first invitation is to just explore this idea of God as home and sojourner, or we as creatures of center and edge. Does this make sense to you? Do you feel this in your own life? Maybe think about, do you tend to lean more toward being a home person or an edge person, maybe, something like that.
And think back to those experiences and wonder in them how you experienced God's presence.
In the past. Yeah.
In the past, an experience that you've had where you've experienced God's presence in that living in the edge or living in the wilderness and that transformational time, and maybe share
Just
that.
share an example.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then maybe finally lean into this season, this moment in your life. Maybe you've been already exploring this during the season of Lent, but what wilderness are you being called into right now? All right.
Happy Lent.
Okay. Happy Lent.